Before we start, I need to ask you something. Have you ever been somewhere so quiet that the silence itself felt like a living thing watching you? Maybe you're listening to this alone right now, late at night, and you understand what I mean. If you do, drop a comment below. And if this is your first time hearing about what really happens on tribal lands after dark, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another cop story. This is about the rules that keep us alive and the price you pay when you forget why those rules exist. My name is Nathan Coldwater, and I'm a police officer with the Mountain Ute Tribal Police Department in southwestern Colorado. I've been on the force for exactly 4 months, but what I've seen in those 4 months has aged me in ways that 10 years with Denver PD never did. I thought I knew police work. I thought I'd seen everything a cop could see in a city of 700,000 people. Gang violence, homicides, drug trafficking, all of it. I was good at my job. Made detective by 29. Had commendations, a solid clearance rate, and the kind of reputation that opens doors. But I came back here because my father died. Heart attack at 58, sudden and without warning. He was the one who'd begged me to stay all those years ago, to join tribal police instead of running off to the city. I was 22 and angry and convinced that life on the res was small and limiting. I wanted something bigger, something that mattered. Turns out I had no idea what mattered. 6 weeks before my father died, he left me a voicemail. I didn't listen to it until 3 days after his funeral. His voice was strained, tired. "Nathan," he said, "if you ever come back here to work, remember what your grandfather taught us. Rule 1 isn't superstition. It's survival. Never say their name out loud, especially not after dark. Never. There are things in the canyons that listen for their names, and once they hear you, they know you. And son, they will never forget." I deleted that message the same day. I thought grief had made him confused, mixing up the old stories with reality. Now I know better. Now I know my father was trying to save my life. The drive from Denver to Tower Oak takes about 7 hours if you don't stop. I stopped 4 times, not because I needed gas or food, but because I was delaying the inevitable. Every mile west took me closer to memories I'd spent 12 years trying to outrun. The landscape changed slowly, urban sprawl giving way to high plains, then to the red rock country of southwestern Colorado. By the time I crossed into the Mountain Ute reservation, the sun was setting, painting the mesas in shades of crimson and amber. Sleeping Ute Mountain dominated the horizon, that massive formation that looks like a warrior lying on his back, arms crossed over his chest. My grandfather used to tell me stories about that mountain, about how it wasn't just rock and earth, but a living thing, a protector who slept but sometimes woke. I used to love those stories when I was a kid, before I decided I was too smart for legends and traditions. The tribal police station sat at the edge of Tower Oak, a low concrete building that looked like it had been built in the 1970s and hadn't been updated since. 3 patrol vehicles were parked outside, all of them showing wear from years of rough roads and harsh weather. A flag hung at half-mast, probably for my father. He'd worked at this station for 30 years before retiring, and everyone knew him. Inside, the station was small and functional. 4 desks in the main room, a break area with a coffee pot that looked like it had seen better decades, and offices in the back. A woman stood by one of the desks, reviewing paperwork. She was maybe 50, with silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a traditional bun and eyes that seemed to assess me in a single glance. Her uniform was crisp despite the late hour, and she wore sergeant stripes. "Nathan Coldwater," she said. It wasn't a question.
I'm Sergeant Emma Redmond.
"I worked with your father for 15 years. He was a good man and a good cop. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you, ma'am. Just Emma when it's us." She gestured to a chair. "Sit. We need to talk before your first shift tomorrow." Something in her tone made me pay attention. This wasn't going to be a standard orientation. She pulled a laminated card from her desk drawer and slid it across to me. "Your father made me promise that if you ever came back to work here, I'd give you this before you set foot on patrol. He updated it 2 months before he died. Said he had a feeling you'd need it soon." I picked up the card. It was titled Mountain Ute Tribal Police Field Protocols. Below that were 8 rules typed in both English and Ute. The first rule was in bold, larger font than the others. Rule 1. Never say their name out loud. Use the old ones or them or those things, but never their name, especially after sunset. Speaking the name is an invitation. My throat tightened. This was what my father had tried to warn me about in that voicemail. "What is this?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer wouldn't make sense. Not in the way my police training had taught me things should make sense. Emma leaned forward, her expression grave. "Those are survival protocols, Nathan. Not suggestions, not cultural sensitivity guidelines. Survival instructions. Your father helped write them after 3 officers died in the 1990s, all within 6 months of each other. They died because they thought the old ways were just stories, because they didn't follow the rules." I read through the rest of the rules, each one more bizarre than the last. Rule 2. If you see someone walking on all 4s at night, do not approach. Return to your vehicle and leave the area immediately. Do not look back. Rule 3. If you find tracks that start as human and change to animal, mark the location and call for backup. Do not follow the tracks alone. Rule 4. Between midnight and 3 a.m., if your radio picks up Ute language you don't recognize, turn it off for 10 minutes. Do not respond to any calls during that time. Rule 5. If someone knocks on your patrol car window and you see no one when you look, drive away. Do not open the window or door. Rule 6. Sage smoke in the desert means a cleansing ceremony. Give it wide berth and do not interrupt, even if you see something that looks wrong. Rule 7. If you respond to a call at an abandoned hogan and the doorway faces north, do not enter. Call a medicine man immediately. Rule 8. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong in a way you can't explain, it probably is. The old ones affect the air around them. You'll feel it before you see them. I looked up at Emma. "You're telling me these are real?" That Denver PD trained me for 12 years and somehow forgot to mention that monsters exist. "Not monsters," Emma corrected. "The old ones. And yes, they're real. As real as you and me. More real, maybe, because they were here long before we gave names to things, and they'll be here long after we're gone. This is insane. Is it?" She pulled out a file folder and opened it. Inside were photographs, incident reports, and what looked like medical examiner findings. December 1997. Officer James Whitehorse was found dead in his patrol car near Mancos Canyon. Cause of death is listed as animal attack. but the me noted that no known animal in North America has claw patterns matching the wounds. The car was locked from the inside, all windows intact. She pulled out another report. March 1998. Officer Sarah Begay disappeared while responding to a disturbance call near Mesa Verde. Her patrol car was found 3 days later, 15 miles from where she'd last radioed in. The driver's seat was covered in scratches, like she'd been trying to claw her way out of something. She was never found. A third report, June 1998. Officer Thomas Yazzie responded to a call about prowlers near an abandoned property. Backup arrived 20 minutes later and found him catatonic in his vehicle, staring straight ahead. He never spoke again. Died in a care facility 2 years later. The medical staff said he'd scream every night at exactly 2:47 a.m. Always the same words in Ute. "They know my name now." The room felt colder suddenly. What were they? What do you think they were? Emma's voice was quiet but firm. Your grandfather knew. Your father knew. Every officer who's worked this territory for more than a month knows. The old ones have been here since before the Ute people came to these lands, and they'll be here long after. They exist in the spaces between, in the canyons and caves and places where daylight doesn't quite reach. And the first rule, the most important rule, is that you never say their name out loud. Why? What happens if you do? You call them to you. Speaking their name is like sending up a flare that only they can see. It tells them you know about them, and that makes you interested. And Nathan, you never want to be interesting to the old ones. You want to be invisible. You want to do your job, follow the protocols, and get home before dawn. I stared at the laminated card in my hands. Every rational part of my brain was screaming that this was impossible, that I should laugh and walk out. But I kept thinking about my father's voicemail, about the fear in his voice. He'd been a practical man, not given to superstition. If he believed this, if he'd spent his last days trying to warn me, when do I start? I asked. Emma almost smiled. Tomorrow night. Your partner will be Officer Marcus Yellowhorse. He's been here 6 years. He'll show you the territory and teach you what you need to know. But Nathan, I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll follow the protocols even when they don't make sense. Especially then. Your father made me promise to protect you if I could. The only way I can do that is if you trust these rules. I nodded slowly. I'll follow them. Good. Because your first shift is the night of the new moon. And that's when the old ones are most active. Marcus Yellowhorse met me in the station parking lot at 7 p.m. the next evening. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of wiry build that comes from growing up doing physical work. His handshake was firm, his expression cautious. You're Daniel's kid, he said. He talked about you sometimes. Said you were too smart for your own good, always questioning everything. Sounds like him. That quality will get you killed out here. Marcus pulled open the driver's side door of his patrol unit. You ride with me for the first 2 weeks. After that, if you survive and still want to stay, you get your own vehicle. If I survive? He looked at me over the hood of the car. Your father didn't tell you what it's really like out here, did he? He wanted you to stay away. He told me once that the best thing you ever did was leave. But now you're back, and we have to make sure you live long enough to regret it. We drove west out of Tow Oak, into the sprawling darkness of the reservation. The roads were mostly unpaved. winding through canyons and across mesas where the only light came from our headlights and the stars overhead. Marcus drove with practiced ease, navigating turns and washouts that I could barely see. "First thing you need to understand," he said, "is that everything Emma told you is real. I know your instinct is to rationalize it, to find explanations that fit what you learned in the academy. You need to fight that instinct. Out here, your training will keep you alive about 60% of the time. The protocols handle the other 40%. What made you believe?" I asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. 6 months into my first year, I got a call about a disturbance at an old property near Yucca House. The place had been abandoned for years. The family died off or moved away. Neighbors said they heard screaming. I responded alone because backup was 40 minutes out. He turned onto an even smaller road, barely more than 2 tracks in the dirt. When I got there, I saw someone standing in the yard. Couldn't tell if it was a man or woman. They were facing away from me. I called out, identified myself as police. The figure turned around, and Nathan, I can't fully explain what I saw. It looked almost human, but the proportions were wrong. Arms too long, joints bending in ways that shouldn't work. And the eyes, they caught my headlights and reflected back like an animal's. "What did you do?" I remembered Rule 2. When you see someone walking on all fours, do not approach. This thing wasn't on all fours yet, but as I watched, it started to drop down, maintaining eye contact the whole time. That's when I got back in my car and left. I drove straight to Emma's house even though my shift wasn't over. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold my coffee cup. "And Emma believed you." Emma told me I'd seen one of the old ones, and that I was lucky I'd followed protocol. She said they test new officers, see if they'll run or if they'll be stupid enough to try and enforce human law on something that doesn't acknowledge human authority. Running was the smart choice. We crested a ridge and Marcus pulled over, killing the engine but leaving the lights on. Below us stretched a canyon system, dark and vast, with rock formations jutting up like broken teeth. "This is the Northern Patrol boundary," Marcus said. "We don't go into those canyons at night. Not ever. During the day, only with a medicine man present. Your father helped establish that boundary after Sarah Begay disappeared. They found her car down there." He pointed to a spot about 2 miles into the canyon. "Took a week to recover it. Every window was shattered from the inside, and there were handprints on the ceiling, like something had been in there with her, something she was trying to get away from." A chill ran down my spine. "And they never found her. They found pieces," Marcus said quietly, "scattered over 3 miles. The ME's report said animal predation, but I've seen what coyotes and mountain lions do to bodies. This was different. This was intentional." "How do you know?" "Because they arranged her remains in a pattern. A circle with symbols made from her clothes in the center. The medicine man who blessed the site said it was a warning. The old ones were marking their territory, telling us what happens when we come where we're not welcome." My mouth was dry. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand what we're dealing with. These aren't criminals you can arrest. They're not animals you can tranquilize. They're old, Nathan. Older than the Ute people, older than any tribe that came before. They were here when this land was different, and they've learned how to survive everything the world has thrown at them. All we can do is coexist by following the rules they've taught us through blood and death." Our radio crackled to life. Unit 12, we have a wellness check request. Lila Redfeather Residence, Box Elder Road. The family hasn't heard from her in 2 days. Marcus keyed the radio. Unit 12 responding. ETA 20 minutes. As he started the engine, he glanced at me. Welcome to Tribal Police, Nathan. Try to remember everything I just told you. Box Elder Road was a dirt track that wound through juniper and pinyon country. The kind of terrain that looked benign in daylight but took on a different character after dark. Lila Redfeather's property sat at the end of a long driveway, a small modular home with a traditional hogan behind it. The porch light was on, but no other lights showed in the windows. Standard wellness check protocol, Marcus said as we pulled up. We knock, announce ourselves, check the perimeter if no one answers. If we have to enter, we do it together. And Nathan, if you feel anything wrong, anything at all, you tell me immediately. Don't wait. Don't try to rationalize it. We approached the front door. The night was absolutely still, no wind, no animal sounds. Just silence that seemed to press against my eardrums. Marcus knocked firmly. Tribal Police. Mrs. Redfeather, we're here to check on you. Your family called. No response. He knocked again, louder. Still nothing. I'm gonna check the back, Marcus said. You stay at the front door. If you hear me call, you come running. If you hear anything else, you get back to the vehicle and radio for backup. What else would I hear? He looked at me steadily. You'll know if it happens. Trust me. Marcus disappeared around the side of the house. I stood on the porch, my hand resting on my service weapon out of habit, even though I was starting to understand that a gun wouldn't be much help against what people were really afraid of out here. That's when I felt it. A change in the air, like the pressure drop before a storm. The hair on my arms stood up, and my stomach clenched with an instinctive fear that had nothing to do with rational thought. This was what Marcus meant. This feeling of wrongness, of something fundamentally not right with the space I was occupying. I turned slowly, scanning the yard. The shadows between the juniper trees seemed darker than they should be, deeper. And in one of those shadows, something moved. It was tall, or at least it seemed tall. The proportions were difficult to judge because it didn't move like a person. It moved like something imitating human movement without quite understanding how humans moved. The motion was too fluid in some places, too jerky in others. My training said to challenge it, to identify myself and give commands. But Rule 8 echoed in my head. Trust your instincts. This felt wrong in every possible way. This wasn't a person. Marcus. I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. Marcus, we need to go. The thing in the shadows tilted its head, and even though I couldn't see its face clearly, I knew it was looking at me, studying me. The pressure in the air increased, making it hard to breathe. Marcus came around the corner fast. He took one look at my face, then at the shadows, and his hand went to something hanging from his belt. Not his gun. A small leather pouch. Get to the vehicle, he said quietly. Don't run. Walk normally. Don't look back. We backed toward the patrol car, maintaining eye contact with the shadowed area. The thing didn't follow, but I could feel its attention on us, heavy and cold. When we got to the car, Marcus opened his pouch and sprinkled something around our doors, moving quickly but methodically. What is that? I asked. Corn pollen. It won't stop them, but it makes us less interesting. Get in. We got in the car and Marcus started the engine. As he put it in reverse, I couldn't help it. I looked back at the shadows. The thing had moved closer. It stood at the edge of the porch light's reach, and for just a moment I saw it clearly. It was impossibly tall, maybe 7 feet, with arms that hung too long and a face that was almost human but wrong in ways my brain couldn't process. And it was smiling. "Don't look at it," Marcus said sharply. "Eyes forward. Now." I forced myself to turn away. As we drove back down the driveway, Marcus picked up the radio. "Unit 12 to dispatch. Wellness check at Red Feather residence inconclusive. Requesting medicine man response and daylight follow-up. Also requesting a welfare check from the family by phone to confirm Mrs. Redfeather's location." The dispatcher acknowledged. Marcus drove in silence for several minutes before speaking again. "What you saw back there, that was one of them. The old ones. It was curious about you because you're new. They always test new officers. What would have happened if we'd stayed? Nothing good. They like to play with people who don't show proper respect. Make you disappear for a few hours, return you confused and miles away. Or they make you disappear permanently. Depends on their mood. That's insane. That's reality out here. The question is, can you handle it? Because if you can't, it's better to know now. Before you make a mistake that costs you your life or someone else's." I thought about my father's voicemail, about his insistence that Rule 1 was survival. Never say their name out loud. Now I understand why. If just looking at one of them affected me this way, I couldn't imagine what would happen if I actually called them. "I can handle it," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Marcus nodded. "We'll see. The night's not over yet." We were halfway back to town when dispatch called again. This time the voice sounded stressed. "Unit 12, we have a report of a person on the roadway. Highway 160 near mile marker 34. The caller says it's an elderly woman who appears confused, walking in the traffic lane." Marcus cursed under his breath. "That's the stretch near the old residential school site." "Residential school?" I asked. "You really don't know your history, do you?" Residential schools were where they sent indigenous kids. Forced assimilation. Abuse, death, trauma. The one near here closed in the 1980s, but the building is still standing. Empty, supposedly. He turned the car around and headed north. "I need you to listen carefully. If this is who I think it is, she's not what she appears to be. There's a story about an old woman who walks that stretch of highway. People pick her up, give her a ride, and she talks to them. Friendly conversation. Then she asks them to say a phrase in Ute. Just a simple phrase, she says, to teach them the language. What's the phrase? That's the thing. It changes, but it's always a name. The name of one of the old ones. She tricks people into saying it out loud. And once you speak that name, you've invited them in. What happens then? Depends on the person. Some die in car accidents within a week. Some just disappear. A few go insane. Your father investigated 7 cases over his career where people had encountered the old woman and said the name. None of those people are alive today. We reached mile marker 34. I could see her in our headlights, standing at the side of the road. She looked exactly like you'd expect. An elderly Ute woman, maybe 70 or 80, wearing a traditional shawl and long skirt. She waved at us weakly, like she needed help. Marcus stopped the car but didn't get out. He rolled his window down a few inches. "Evening, grandmother. Are you lost? Do you need a ride?" She approached the window, smiling kindly. "Oh, thank you, officer. Yes, I'm trying to get to my daughter's house in Tow Oak. My car broke down and I've been walking for so long." "What's your daughter's name?" Marcus asked. "We can call her to pick you up." "That's so kind of you." Her smile never wavered. "But I don't want to trouble her this late. Could you give me a ride?" "It's not far." "Of course," Marcus said. "But first, I need to see your identification. Standard procedure." Her smile faltered slightly. "I don't have it with me. I left so quickly when my car broke down." "Where's your car? We should call a tow truck." "It's—" She gestured vaguely behind her. "Back there somewhere. I don't remember exactly." I felt that same wrong feeling from earlier, that pressure in the air. Looking at her more closely, I noticed things that didn't add up. Her clothes were clean despite her claim of walking for so long on dusty roads. Her shoes showed no wear, and her eyes, they were just slightly too reflective in our headlights. "Grandmother," Marcus said carefully, "what's your clan?" She tilted her head, still smiling. "Does it matter, officer? I just need a ride." "It matters to me. I like to know who I'm helping." "Then I'll tell you." She leaned closer to the window. "But first you should learn a phrase in Ute. It's polite to greet elders in their language. Let me teach you. It's very simple. You say no." Marcus interrupted. He reached for the corn pollen pouch again. "We're not interested in learning phrases tonight. And grandmother, you should get off the road. It's not safe to be out here after dark." Her expression changed. The friendly smile disappeared, replaced by something colder. "You're one of the smart ones. That's a shame. I prefer the stupid ones. They're more fun. I'm sure you do. Now step back from the vehicle." She didn't move. Instead, she reached toward the window, her arm extending further than it should, longer than any human arm could reach. Her fingers were too long, too thin, ending in nails that looked more like claws. Marcus threw corn pollen through the window gap. It hit her face and she recoiled, making a sound that wasn't human. It was something between a hiss and a scream, high-pitched and wrong. He hit the gas and we accelerated away. In the rearview mirror, I watched her form change. The old woman's shape fell away like a discarded coat, and what stood in the road behind us was tall and angular and nothing like a human. Then she was gone, simply vanished between one heartbeat and the next. "What the hell was that?" I asked, my voice shaking. That was the old woman. She's been walking that stretch of highway since before the residential school was built. The elders say she's older than the Ute people, that she was here when other tribes lived on this land, and she'll be here long after we're gone. All she wants is for someone to say the name, just once. That's her game. And if someone does, then the old ones come for them. And Nathan, they don't come quick. They take their time, make you suffer, make you understand that you broke the rules and that there are consequences. I stared at the dark road ahead. How do you do this? How do you come out here night after night knowing what's waiting? Because someone has to. Because if we don't patrol, if we don't maintain the boundaries, things get worse. The old ones get bolder.
People die.
It's not a question of wanting to do this job. It's a question of whether you're strong enough to do what needs to be done. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your father understood. Will you?" I showed it to Marcus. He looked at it and his jaw tightened. "They know you now," he said. "They know you're Daniel's son, and they're testing you. Everything from here gets harder. Are you sure you want to stay?" I thought about walking away, going back to Denver, pretending this night never happened. But I also thought about my father spending 30 years doing this job, protecting people from things they didn't even know existed. "I'm sure," I said. "Then God help you, because you're going to need it." Over the next 2 weeks, I learned the territory. Marcus took me to every corner of our patrol area, showing me the places where the boundaries were thin, where the old ones were most active. We responded to calls that ranged from mundane, domestic disputes and drunk drivers, to the inexplicable, tracks that changed from human to animal, sounds in the canyons that didn't match any known wildlife, objects moved in ways that physics couldn't explain. And I started to notice a pattern. Every incident that involved the old ones, every strange call, they all had something in common. Someone had broken one of the protocols. Not always intentionally. Sometimes out of ignorance, sometimes desperation, sometimes just bad luck. But the pattern was clear. Follow the rules and you have a chance. The first real test came on my 10th night of patrol. Marcus had called in sick, some kind of stomach flu, which meant I was riding with a different officer. Sarah Benali was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, and had a reputation for being fearless. She'd been with tribal police for 15 years. "Marcus told me you've been doing well," she said as we started our shift. "Said you actually listen, which puts you ahead of most rookies. But tonight I want to see if you can handle a real situation without backup." "What kind of situation?" "The kind where the protocols are all that stand between you and something that wants you dead." We drove to the eastern boundary of our patrol area, where the reservation bordered Mesa Verde National Park. This was contested territory. The old ones didn't recognize modern property lines, and they'd been here long before the park was established. Conflicts were common. Sarah pulled off the main road onto a barely visible track that led up into the mesas. "We've had reports of hikers seeing things up here. Park rangers found 3 tents abandoned last week. Food still in coolers, clothes still in bags, but no sign of the people. For hikers, just gone. The old ones? That's what I'm thinking. The Park Service wants to call it voluntary disappearance. People who wanted to vanish and start over. But I've seen this before. The old ones sometimes take people who camp in the wrong places. Places that are theirs." We parked at a trailhead. Sarah pulled out her flashlight and the corn pollen pouch that I'd learned every officer carried. "We're going to walk about a mile up this trail. There's a canyon overlook where people like to camp. If the old ones took those hikers, there might be signs." "What kind of signs?" "You'll know them when you see them." The trail climbed steeply through juniper and pinyon forest. Our flashlights cut narrow beams through the darkness, showing red dirt and weathered stone. The silence was complete. No insects, no night birds, nothing. Just our footsteps and breathing. Rule 8 was screaming at me. This felt wrong. Every instinct said to turn back. But Sarah kept walking, so I followed. We reached the overlook after 20 minutes. It was a flat area maybe 30 feet across, with a sheer drop on one side looking down into a canyon system. Someone had built a fire ring with rocks. Around it were scattered camping items. Tent partially collapsed. A backpack with clothes spilling out. A cooler with its lid open. But no people. Sarah knelt by the fire ring, examining something. "Nathan, Come look at this. I moved closer. Inside the fire ring, arranged in a perfect circle, were what looked like pieces of bone. Small pieces carefully placed. Are those human? I asked. I don't know, but this is a message. The old ones are territorial. When people camp in their spaces, sometimes they leave warnings like this. Bone circles, specific patterns. It's their way of saying this is ours. Leave. I heard something then. A voice calling from down in the canyon. It sounded like someone shouting for help. Did you hear that? I started toward the edge. Sarah grabbed my arm hard. Stop. Rule 8. What do you feel? I focused past my instinct to help. The wrongness was there, stronger than before. The air felt thick, hard to breathe. And the voice calling for help, it had something off about it. The tone was wrong, too flat, like someone who'd learned to make the sound without understanding the emotion. It's them, I said. It's them, Sarah confirmed. They're trying to lure you over the edge. Classic tactic. Make you think someone needs rescuing, get you close to the drop, then push you or make you fall. We need to leave. Now, we backed away from the overlook, keeping our flashlights moving, scanning the darkness. I saw movement in the trees, multiple shapes circling us. They stayed just beyond the light, but I could see their outlines. Too tall, wrong proportions, moving with that distinctive not quite human gait. Don't run, Sarah said quietly. That triggers prey drive. Walk steadily. Sprinkle corn pollen as we go. She handed me her pouch and I scattered corn pollen behind us as we descended the trail. The shapes followed but didn't approach. They stayed at the edge of the light, pacing us, waiting. When we finally reached the patrol car, Sarah started the engine immediately. As we pulled away, I looked back. There must have been a dozen of them standing at the trailhead watching us leave. In the red glow of our taillights, I could see their faces for just a moment. Almost human, but not. Never quite human. For people camped up there, Sarah said. For people who didn't know the rules, who didn't know they were camping in a place that belonged to something older and more territorial than any bear or mountain lion. Now they're gone, and we'll never find them, because the old ones don't leave bodies to find. Not where humans can reach them. What do we tell the families? We tell them the truth, as much of it as they can handle. That their loved ones went missing in an area known for difficult terrain and dangerous wildlife. We searched but found no trace. That sometimes, out here, people vanish and we never know why. That's not the whole truth. No, but the whole truth would sound insane. The whole truth is that their loved ones broke ancient rules they didn't know existed and now they're paying the price. What good does that do anyone? She was right, but it still felt wrong. These people deserved to know what really happened. But how do you explain to someone that their son or daughter or parent was taken by entities that shouldn't exist? That they're gone not because of an accident or an animal attack, but because they camped in the wrong place and drew the attention of something that's been here since before human memory? You don't. You can't. So you lie by omission and you carry the weight of that truth alone. Welcome to the real job, Sarah said. This is what your father did for 30 years. Kept the boundaries, followed the protocols, and watched people die when they didn't. Now it's your turn. The dreams started 3 weeks into the job. Always the same. I'm walking through a canyon I don't recognize, and something is following me. I can hear its footsteps echoing off the stone walls, sometimes on 2 legs, sometimes on 4. I never see it clearly, but I know it's there. And I know it knows who I am. I'd wake up sweating, my heart pounding, with the absolute certainty that I wasn't alone in my room. The feeling would fade after a few minutes, but it always left me unsettled. Then things started appearing at my house. Small things easy to dismiss as coincidence. A circle of stones in my yard that I didn't remember being there. Scratches on my door frame that looked like claw marks. Once, I found a handful of corn pollen on my doorstep, except it wasn't the blessed kind that offered protection. This was different, darker, with what looked like ash mixed in. I showed it to Emma the next day. Her face went pale. "Marked corn pollen," she said. "Someone or something is marking you, claiming territory or declaring interest. Your father dealt with this twice in his career. Once with Officer Begay before she disappeared, and once with himself about 6 months before he retired. What did he do? He had a protection ceremony performed. A man named Thomas Redcloud spent 3 days conducting the rites, and after that the marking stopped. But Nathan, your father, was never the same after. He told me the old ones had shown him things during that ceremony. Things about what they really were, what they wanted. Changed him. I need that ceremony," I said. "Thomas died 2 years ago, but his grandson, Michael Redcloud, has been trained in the same ways. I can ask him to meet with you. But Nathan, you need to understand something. These ceremonies, they're not just symbolic. When you invite a medicine man to perform protection rites, you're acknowledging that the spiritual world is real and that you need help navigating it. You can't go back from that. You can't ever again pretend that the old ones are just stories. I stopped pretending that 3 weeks ago. Michael Redcloud came to my house that evening. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with the kind of calm presence that made you feel safer just being near him. He walked around my property, studying the marked corn pollen, the stone circles, the scratches. "They're interested in you," he said finally. "More interested than usual for a new officer. You're Daniel Coldwater's son. Your father kept them at bay for 30 years, maintained the boundaries, and made sure they didn't get too bold. They respected him in their way. Now he's gone, and they're testing to see if you're like him. If you're strong enough to hold the line. How do I prove I am? You don't prove anything. You survive. You follow the protocols, you respect the boundaries, and you don't give them any openings. That's all you can do." He began the ceremony at sundown. I won't detail everything that happened, partly because some of it is sacred and shouldn't be shared, and partly because I'm not sure I fully understood it all. But I can tell you this. When Michael started singing the protection songs, when he began burning the sacred herbs and making offerings to the 4 directions, I felt something shift. The air in my house changed. The weight that had been pressing down on me for weeks lifted slightly, and I saw them, just for a moment at the edge of my vision. The old ones, standing in the darkness beyond my windows, watching, waiting. Michael's voice never wavered. He sang in Ute, words I didn't understand but felt in my chest. He painted symbols on my doors and windows with blessed cornmeal. He placed protection bundles at the 4 corners of my property. When he finished, hours later, the presence was gone. The old ones had retreated, but I knew they hadn't left. They were just beyond the boundaries Michael had created, patient and eternal. "This will hold them for a time," Michael said. "But Nathan, they won't stop. They never stop. The only way to truly be safe from them is to leave this place, go somewhere they don't live. But you won't do that, will you?
No.
Your father didn't either. He stayed because he knew someone had to. Someone who understood what was really out here. Someone who could protect the people who didn't know they needed protecting. Michael put a hand on my shoulder. You're walking his path now. It's a hard path, a lonely one, but it's necessary. After he left, I stood in my yard looking out at the darkness. The protection was in place, but I could still feel them out there. Watching, testing, waiting for me to make a mistake. My phone rang. It was Marcus. You okay? I felt something shift tonight, like a tension breaking. Michael Red Cloud performed a protection ceremony. The old ones were marking me. Shit, already? Usually they wait longer before targeting new officers directly. You must have really caught their attention. What does that mean? It means they see something in you. Something that either threatens them or interests them. Maybe both. Your father had the same problem. They watched him his entire career, testing him, trying to find weaknesses. He never gave them any. That's why he lasted so long. And the ones who didn't last, they gave the old ones an opening, said the name out loud, followed them into the wrong places, trusted when they should have been afraid. Small mistakes that cost them everything. I looked at the protection symbols Michael had painted on my door. I won't make those mistakes. Everyone says that. But Nathan, fear makes people stupid. And the old ones are very good at making people afraid. Just remember, the protocols aren't suggestions. They're the accumulated wisdom of everyone who came before you. Everyone who survived long enough to learn what works. After we hung up, I went inside and locked every door and window, even though I knew locks were meaningless against what was out there. Physical barriers didn't stop the old ones. Only knowledge, respect, and careful adherence to the rules kept you safe. I pulled out the laminated protocol card Emma had given me on my first day. Rule 1 stared back at me in bold letters. Never say their name out loud. I'd followed that rule perfectly. Never once had I spoken the name that everyone seemed to know but no one would say. And I never would, because now I understand. The name was power. Speaking it was an invitation. And once you invited the old ones into your life, once you gave them that opening, there was no going back. My father had understood this. He'd lived with that knowledge for 30 years, carrying the weight of protecting people from threats they couldn't see or understand. Now that burden was mine. The dreams would continue. The tests would keep coming. But I would follow the protocols. I would hold the line my father had held for 3 decades. Because someone had to. And if not me, then who? The call came in at 2:17 a.m. on a moonless night in late October. Dispatch's voice was tense, almost scared. All units, we have a child missing. 7-year-old boy, Tommy Whitehorse, last seen at his home on Canyon Road 2 hours ago. Parents woke up and found his bed empty, the front door open. They're requesting all available officers. Marcus and I were closest. We responded immediately, arriving at the Whitehorse residence within 10 minutes. The parents were on the porch, the mother crying, the father pacing with barely controlled panic. He's never done this before, the father, James Whitehorse, said. Tommy doesn't even like going outside alone during the day. He'd never leave at night. Something took him. Something came into our house and took our son. Did you see or hear anything? Marcus asked. I heard scratching, like something was at his window. I thought it was a tree branch, so I ignored it. But there's no tree near his window. And then I heard singing, soft like a lullaby. I thought it was my wife, but when I looked, she was asleep. The singing was coming from outside. Marcus and I exchanged looks. What did the singing sound like? Do you remember any words? It was in Ute. I don't speak it well, but I thought I heard my grandmother's name, the name she was called before she died. But that's impossible. She's been gone for 20 years. What was your grandmother's name? I asked. James started to say it, then stopped. He looked at me with sudden understanding. I can't tell you, can I? Because saying it might call for more attention. That's right, Marcus said. The old ones use names. Family names, especially names of the dead. They're bait. Then my son is gone. Because he wouldn't know not to follow a voice calling his great-grandmother's name. He's 7. He's just a baby. I looked at the open front door, at the darkness beyond it. How long has he been missing? We found his bed empty at 2 a.m. He could have been gone for hours. We don't know. 2 hours in the desert at night, a 7-year-old child. Even without the old ones, the odds were bad. With them involved, it was worse. We'll find him, I said, knowing it might be a lie but unable to stay silent. We'll start a search now. Marcus pulled me aside. Nathan, you know what this is. The old ones took him. This is what they do. They lure children out, especially during the new moon. The darkness is deepest. The boundaries are thinnest. So what, we just give up? Tell his parents their son is gone and there's nothing we can do? I'm saying we search, but we search smart. We follow protocols. We don't go into the deep canyons alone. We don't split up. And if we see something that looks like Tommy but feels wrong, we don't approach it. You think they'd use his form? Make us think we found him? I think they'd do whatever it takes to catch more prey. A missing child brings officers. Officers in panic make mistakes. It's a trap, Nathan. The child is bait and we're the target. More patrol cars arrived. Sarah Benali, 2 other officers I'd met briefly, and Emma herself. A missing child brought everyone, on duty or not. Emma organized search teams while Michael Redcloud was called to perform protective ceremonies for the searchers. We have maybe 4 hours until dawn, Emma said. That's our window. After sunrise, if we haven't found him, we expand the search with volunteers and park service. But for now, officers only. 2-person teams, constant radio contact, and nobody goes beyond the safe perimeters we've established. Is that understood? Everyone nodded. Marcus and I took the Western Canyon search area. This was the direction the parents said they'd heard the singing coming from. We moved slowly, flashlights scanning the terrain, calling Tommy's name. Tommy Whitehorse, if you can hear us, call out. Your parents sent us to find you. Only silence answered. The kind of deep silence that meant the old ones were near. Every animal with sense had fled the area. We'd been searching for maybe 30 minutes when I heard it. A child's voice, calling from deeper in the canyon. Help! Please help me.
I'm scared.
I started toward the voice, but Marcus grabbed my jacket. Wait, listen carefully. I focused on the voice. It sounded like a child. It sounded terrifying, but there was something wrong with it. The tone was perfect, but the emotion was missing. like someone who'd learned to make the sounds of fear without actually feeling it. "It's not him," Marcus said. "It's them," using his voice to draw us deeper. The voice called again, closer now. "Officers, I see your lights. Please come get me. There's something out here. We need to check." I said, "What if we're wrong? What if it really is him?" Then he's already gone, because Tommy wouldn't come toward us. A truly terrified child lost in the dark would hide, curl up, stay still. They wouldn't run toward strangers with flashlights. This is predator behavior, Nathan. Coming to us means it's not human. The voice was very close now. I could see movement ahead, a small shape in the darkness. "Please don't leave me. I'm so scared." Then I saw it clearly. A child-sized figure, but moving wrong. The joints bent at angles that shouldn't work. And when it turned its head to look at us, the neck rotated too far, almost 180 degrees. Marcus pulled out his corn pollen pouch and started backing away. "We're leaving. Now." The thing that wasn't Tommy dropped to all fours and started toward us. Fast. Marcus threw corn pollen and it recoiled, hissing. The child's voice was gone, replaced by something that sounded like rocks grinding together. We ran. Protocol said don't run, but sometimes survival overrides protocol. We sprinted back toward the main trail, our flashlights bouncing wildly. Behind us, I could hear multiple sets of footsteps. Not just the false Tommy, but others. The old ones were hunting in a pack. We reached the trail and the patrol car just as something grabbed at my jacket. I spun and saw a hand, too long, too pale, with fingers that ended in sharp points. Marcus hit it with his flashlight and it released me. We got in the car and Marcus accelerated away, driving fast on the rough dirt road. In the rearview mirror, I saw them. 5, 6, maybe more of the old ones standing in the road watching us leave. And at the front of the group, the thing that had used Tommy's voice, still wearing that approximation of a child's shape. "The real Tommy," I said. "Is he already dead?" "Probably. They don't usually take children to keep them alive."
I'm sorry, Nathan.
"I know you wanted to save him, but some things we can't fight. Some things are too old, too strong, too determined. All we can do is survive and prevent them from taking more." We regrouped with the other search teams. No one had found any sign of Tommy except for tracks that started as small child footprints and then changed into something else. Emma called off the search at dawn and contacted the FBI. The federal agents would search with daylight and technology and find nothing, because there was nothing human to find. I went to the White Horse house that afternoon to give my report. James and his wife looked like they'd aged 10 years overnight. When I told them we hadn't found their son, that the FBI would continue searching, the mother just stared at me. "You know what took him," she said. "You know he's not coming back. Why won't you just say it?" "Ma'am, we're doing everything we can. The old ones took my baby. They came in the night and stole him because we didn't protect him properly. Because we forgot the prayers. Because we thought we could live like white people and ignore the old ways." She started crying. "We killed our son by forgetting." Her husband put his arms around her, but his eyes met mine. "Find them," he said quietly. "Find the ones who took Tommy. And make sure they don't take anyone else's child." "I can't promise that." "Then what good are you? What good is any of this if you can't stop them?" I had no answer, because he was right. We couldn't stop the old ones. We could only try to avoid them, follow the protocols, and maintain the boundaries. But sometimes, despite everything, they still took people. Still hunted. Still killed. And all we could do was clean up after and lie to the families about what really happened. I drove home that morning and sat in my truck for an hour, staring at my father's police badge that I'd mounted on my dashboard. He'd done this for 30 years. How had he survived it? How had he kept going, knowing that sometimes the evil one, that sometimes the old ones claimed their victims and there was nothing anyone could do? Then I remembered something he'd said to me once, years ago when I was a teenager. I'd asked him why he stayed on the reservation when he could have worked anywhere. He'd looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Because if I leave, who holds the line? Who keeps the boundaries? Someone has to stand between the darkness and the people who don't know it exists. That someone might as well be me. Now I understand. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't about stopping every tragedy. It was about being present, being the one who knew the rules and tried to enforce them, even when enforcement meant nothing more than minimizing the damage." Tommy Whitehorse was gone. But because of the protocols, because we'd followed the rules and hadn't let the old ones lure the search teams into traps, no officers had been taken. The evil had claimed one victim instead of 7 or 8. It was a horrible calculus, but it was the reality of the job. I started the truck and drove to the station. Emma was there, filing reports. "I can't do this," I said. "I can't keep responding to calls where people are already dead and pretending I might save them." "Yes, you can. Because the alternative is worse. If you quit, they'll send someone who doesn't know the protocols. Someone who'll get themselves and others killed trying to fight things they don't understand. You know the rules now, Nathan. That means you have a responsibility. That's not fair." "No, but it's true. Your father knew it. That's why he stayed. And now you know it too. She was right. I hated it, but she was right. Tommy's parents want us to find the ones responsible. We can't. You know that. The old ones aren't individuals we can arrest. They're forces, ancient and territorial. How long is a while? Usually a few months between hunts. Unless something provokes them. Unless someone breaks the protocols and makes them hungry for more." I thought about Rule 1, about never saying their name out loud. About how that one simple rule was the foundation of everything else. Speak the name and you invited them in. Break the first rule and all the others become useless. "I'll stay," I said, "but I need to know more. I need to understand what we're really dealing with. Not just the protocols, but the history. Why they're here, what they want, how my father managed to keep them in check for so long." Emma nodded. "Talk to Michael Redcloud. He knows the stories, the real ones, not the versions we tell children. He can teach you what you need to know. But Nathan, be careful. The more you learn about the old ones, the more they learn about you. Knowledge is a two-way street out here." Michael Redcloud agreed to meet me in the canyons, in a place he said was sacred and protected. A place where the old ones couldn't easily reach, where we could talk without being overheard. We hiked for an hour into the mesa country, to a small alcove carved into red sandstone. Ancient petroglyphs covered the walls, symbols I didn't recognize. "These markings are old," Michael said. "Older than the Ute people. Older than any tribe we know of. They're protection symbols drawn by people who lived here before us. People who also dealt with the old ones and learned how to survive." "What are they? The old ones, I mean, what are we really dealing with? The truth? We don't fully know. The stories say they were here before humans, before any of the tribes. They're remnants of an older world, a time when different rules applied. When they lost their world, they didn't disappear. They just retreated, found places to hide, to wait. The deep canyons, the dark caves, the spaces between things. And they've been there ever since, watching humans come and go, occasionally taking what they want. Why do they hunt us? Why does anything hunt? Hunger, territory, because they can. The old ones don't think like humans. They don't have human morality or human motivations. They're alien, even though they've been on this earth longer than we have. All we can do is maintain the boundaries, follow the protocols, and try not to attract their attention. The protocols mention not saying their name. What is their name? The real one? Michael's expression became grave. I can't tell you. Your father asked me the same question once, early in his career. I refused to tell him. He was angry and thought I was keeping secrets unnecessarily. But 3 years later, after he'd lost 2 officers to the old ones, he thanked me. Said not knowing the name had saved his life multiple times, because he was never tempted to use it. How could knowing it endanger me more than I already am? Because names have power. The real name of the old ones, spoken aloud, is like sending up a beacon. Tells them exactly where you are, who you are, what you fear. It strips away all your protections and leaves you vulnerable. Your father understood this eventually. That's why he made it Rule 1, the foundation of everything else. Someone tried to trick me into saying it. An old woman on the highway, the shapeshifter. Yes, she's been trying that trick for generations. The elders say she's caught dozens of people over the years. Makes them say the name, then watches as the old ones come for them. She feeds on the fear, on the knowing that they've doomed themselves. Sustains her. That's insane. That's reality out here. And Nathan, I need you to understand something. The old ones are testing you specifically because you're Daniel Coldwater's son. Your father held them back for 30 years. He was strong, knowledgeable, and completely dedicated to maintaining the boundaries. They respected him in their way, but they also resented him. He prevented them from hunting as freely as they wanted. Now he's gone, and they're testing to see if you're like him. If you'll be as much of an obstacle. What if I'm not? What if I can't do what he did? Then they'll kill you. Or worse, they'll corrupt you, trick you into breaking the protocols so completely that you become a danger to others. This happened before. Officers who thought they could negotiate with the old ones, who thought they could use their power for good purposes. It never ends well. We sat in silence for a while, looking at the ancient petroglyphs. I thought about my father, about 3 decades of responding to calls like Tommy Whitehorse's disappearance. 3 decades of knowing that evil existed and couldn't be stopped, only managed. How did he stand it? I asked. He believed it mattered, that every person he saved, every time he prevented someone from breaking the protocols, it was worth the cost. And he had hoped that someday, someone would figure out how to push the old ones back permanently, or at least understand them better. Did he ever tell you if he found that answer? No. But in his last years, he told me he was close, that he'd seen patterns, connections between the old ones and specific places, specific times of year. He was building a map, trying to predict where they'd be most active. But he died before he could finish it. Where's the map? I don't know. He said he kept it somewhere safe. somewhere the old ones couldn't find it. Maybe your mother knows. Maybe he left it with someone else. But Nathan, if you find it, be careful. Information about them is valuable, but it's also dangerous. The more you know, the more attractive you become as a target. We hiked back as the sun was setting. Michael left me at my truck with a final warning. The old ones will come for you again. Soon. They always test new officers hard in the first few months. Survive that, follow the protocols perfectly, and you might earn their respect. Make even one mistake and you'll end up like Sarah Begay or James Whitehorse. Gone. Erased. A name in the memorial book and nothing else. I drove home as night fell, thinking about my father's map, about what he might have discovered. When I got to my house, I found an envelope tucked into my door. No postage, no return address. Just my name written in my father's handwriting. Inside was a single piece of paper with coordinates and a note. If you're reading this, I'm gone. The map is in the place where we scattered your mother's ashes. The old ones don't go there. They fear what she became. Trust the protocols. Never say the name. And son, I'm proud of you for coming home. Dad, I sat in my truck, staring at the note as darkness deepened around me. My father had known he was going to die, had known I'd come back, had left me a trail to follow. The old ones might be ancient and powerful, but my father had spent 30 years studying them, learning their patterns, finding their weaknesses. Maybe he'd found a way to push back. Maybe that's what got him killed. And maybe, just maybe, that map would show me how to finish what he started. The coordinates led to a canyon my mother had loved, where we'd scattered her ashes when I was 15. A place of peace and beauty, far from the dark canyons where the old ones hunted. I'd go there tomorrow. I'd find my father's map. And then I'd decide what to do with the knowledge that had cost him his life. But tonight I'd follow the protocols. Lock my doors, keep my protections in place, and survive until dawn. Because that's what my father had taught me in the end. Survival isn't about winning against impossible odds. It's about enduring. It's about being smart enough to know when to fight and when to retreat. It's about following the rules that keep you alive. Rule 1. Never say their name out loud. I never had. I never would. And that simple act of restraint, that one basic protocol followed perfectly, was why I was still alive to tell this story. 6 months have passed since I found my father's map. I won't tell you what was on it, not in detail. Some knowledge is too dangerous to spread, too tempting for people who don't understand the cost of using it. But I can tell you this. My father had figured out patterns. The old ones aren't random. They're territorial, cyclical, predictable if you know what to look for. He'd mapped their hunting grounds, their active periods, even found ways to predict when they'd be most aggressive. Using that information, Emma and I have redesigned our patrol strategies. We avoid certain areas during new moons. We increase presence in others during full moons. We've taught the protocols to tribal members who live in high-risk areas, given them protection bundles, helped them understand the rules without explaining exactly why the rules matter. And it's working. We haven't lost anyone in 6 months. No missing children. No officers taken. No hikers vanished from campsites. The old ones are still out there. I see them sometimes during patrols, standing at the edge of the light, watching, testing. But they've learned that we're not easy prey anymore. That we know their patterns, their tactics, their weaknesses. Tommy Whitehorse's disappearance still haunts me. His parents moved off the reservation 3 months ago and couldn't stand being in the place where they lost their son. I don't blame them. Sometimes leaving is the only way to survive. But I stayed. Like my father before me, I stayed because someone has to hold the line. Someone has to understand what's really out here, what hunts in the darkness between the mesas, what waits in the deep canyons for people foolish enough to wander in alone. Marcus is still my partner. Sarah still patrols the eastern boundaries. Emma still runs the station with firm but fair authority. We're not winning, but we're not losing either. We're maintaining the boundaries, following the protocols, keeping the old ones in check. And every night when I come home alive, when I check on the officers under my command and confirm they're all safe, I think about my father, about 30 years of service, about a lifetime spent protecting people from threats they didn't even know existed. Now I understand why he did it, and I understand why I'll keep doing it, for as long as I can. Because the protocols work. The rules keep us alive. And Rule 1, the most important rule of all, remains unchanged. Never say their name out loud. I haven't. I won't. And if you're ever on tribal lands after dark, if you hear something calling to you from the darkness, if you see something that looks almost human but moves wrong, remember the rule. Never say the name. Your life depends on it. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. I know this story is hard to believe. I know some of you are thinking I'm making it up, that it's just another creepy cop tale to scare people at night. But if you've ever been on tribal lands, if you've ever felt that wrongness in the air that I described, if you've ever seen something in the darkness that didn't move quite right, then you know I'm telling the truth. The old ones are real. They're out there. And the only thing keeping people safe is officers like me who know the protocols and follow them religiously. Drop a comment if you've experienced anything similar. Share your stories. And if you're in law enforcement working tribal lands, stay safe out there. Follow the protocols. Trust your instincts. And whatever you do, never say their name out loud.